What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Infamous Ghost Money, and yo, it's hard out here for these USPS workers, baby. Not only do they have to deal with working long hours in the worst weather conditions, but now they are also actively being targeted and robbed by fraudsters all over the United States for their postal access keys. Fraudsters are using these keys to steal mail containing financial and personal information that they then proceed to sell online or use to do bank fraud and steal millions of dollars. With all this working against these mail carriers, it seems like many of them is just like, yo, if you can't beat them, join them, because there's been several cases coming out lately involving USPS employees and insider fraud. So, in this video, we're going to take a look into two recent cases involving postal employees taking advantage of their positions to do fraud, the methods they used, and of course, how they got themselves caught up in the game. So as always, if you find value in the video, remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to add some quality and practical financial content to your YouTube timeline and stay one step ahead of these fraudsters. Alright, let's get right into the information. The first case involves Dwayne Morris Sr. of California, who was a supervisor with the United States Postal Service, and his son, Dwayne Morris Jr., who have both been recently charged with allegedly attempting to steal over $5 million worth of postal money orders from the Venice, California post office. Now, in case you didn't know, when it comes to money orders and cashier's checks, these type checks are considered guaranteed funds, meaning these checks are as good as cash since they will not bounce. And in addition to this, when they are deposited into an account, United States federal regulations requires these checks to be made available the next business day. Also, cashier's checks could be written for literally any amount, and money orders are capped at $1,000 per check. So, for these reasons, when it comes to check fraud, cashier's checks and money orders are like gold in a fraudster's eyes. Well, when it came to this father and son duo, according to the case paperwork, their alleged fraud story begins on July 11, 2016, when as a USPS supervisor, Morris Sr. would place an order for 10,000 blank money orders, which would then be delivered a month later on August 2, 2016. It would later be discovered during an audit conducted in April 2019 that 5,100 of those money orders would end up being unaccounted for, which had an approximate value of $5.1 million if cashed at $1,000 per check. Based on the paperwork, these checks would end up in the hands of OG Morris's son, Morris Jr., and he, along with his co-conspirators, would allegedly falsely alter the money orders and use them to commit bank fraud. According to the indictment, Morris Jr. would recruit runners and give them fake IDs that they would use to open accounts in order to cash and deposit these falsely altered money orders into bank accounts they opened across multiple states from between June 2018 to November 2019. It seems like everything was going good with the scheme until August 2018, when Morris Jr. would allegedly use 8 of these falsely altered money orders to pay for the rent of his residence. Now, if you ask me, this was a really bad idea because although those money orders were stolen, they are still traceable from the serial numbers since they came directly from the USPS. I mean, seriously. And it's one thing to transact these fugazi money orders with stolen or fake identities, but to use it to pay for your own rent, in your own name, and your daddy worked for the same post office that these money orders went missing from? You gotta be kidding me, man. There are so many better ways homeboy could have got that money to pay for his rent. Come on, dog, you tripping. Anyway, the paperwork also calls out that OG Morris would be investigated on February 12, 2019 and October 28, 2021 about the missing money orders, and he would falsely claim on both occasions that he properly returned some of the money orders via registered mail. I guess the feds wasn't buying it based on all they uncovered because the Morrises would be arrested on May 11, 2022 and would be charged with conspiracy, bank fraud, and aggravated identity theft. So we gotta stay tuned for the outcome of this one, y'all. Next, we're gonna take it over to Edgewood, Maryland and look into the case of Johnson B. Ogunlana, a former USPS mail carrier who was sentenced to 6 years in federal prison on February 18, 2022 for bank and mail fraud conspiracy. As a mail carrier, Ogunlana was assigned to the Brooklyn South Carrier Annex, where he was fully aware that he was not permitted to steal or open any mail he was responsible for delivering. But as I'm sure you can guess, that's exactly what he did. According to the indictment filed against Ogunlana, working with his co-conspirator, Samson Oguntui of Georgia, they would steal bank checks, credit and debit cards, and other personal and business information from the mail that Ogunlana was responsible for delivering that they would use to commit bank fraud, allowing them to steal thousands of dollars. The indictment calls out that the duo was very specific in gathering mail that was being sent to specific businesses and individuals with the goal of collecting enough information on a target to create fake identification documents and set up business EIN numbers using these individuals' identities. They would then use these EIN numbers to establish fraudulent businesses in similar names to the businesses they stole checks from. From this point, they would proceed to open business accounts in the names of these businesses, falsely allowing them to deposit the checks they stole in the mail with not an issue. Now, this method is pretty interesting and very slick because it allowed them to keep their personal identities off the radar, as well as the checks they stole and deposited would most likely clear no problemo, since they were being deposited into accounts that were seemingly legit and titled correctly. Ogunlana and Oguntui would run this scheme successfully from July 2018 to February 2019, stealing over $500,000 in the process. But the money train would eventually come to a halt when several customers along Ogunlana's route would begin complaining about missing mail, and your boy was caught on surveillance footage opening mail and using a stolen credit card. He would be interviewed by the Postal Police on February 5th, 2019, where he was shown multiple videos and images of himself opening mail, Oguntui depositing checks at the ATM, and videos of he and his co-conspirators using stolen payment cards at various locations. His phone would be seized and they would locate conversations on his WhatsApp where he sent photos of stolen mail to Oguntui, and he would also be searched during this interview and would be found with multiple credit cards that were not in his name, receipts with card numbers that did not belong to him, and they even located a piece of mail with a debit card pin to an account that did not belong to Ogunlana hidden in his lunchbox. Homeboy was eating for really though. To make a long story short, Ogunlana would eventually plead guilty on August 23rd, 2021 to conspiracy to commit bank fraud and mail fraud, access device fraud, aggravated identity theft, and theft of mail by a postal employee. And Oguntui would also plead guilty on the same day to conspiracy to commit bank fraud and mail fraud, bank fraud, and aggravated identity theft. Ogunlana would be sentenced to 72 months on February 17, 2022, and Oguntui would be sentenced to 54 months on March 1st, 2022. Sheesh. But with that being said, that's the video on USPS frauds to insiders. I hope you found some value or you were entertained by the video. If you were, leave a comment below with your thoughts. Hit that like button and also subscribe to the channel to add some quality, informative, and entertaining content to your YouTube timeline and stay one step ahead of these fraudsters. Alright, peace.